And we're back with another NBA Observations. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here for the Lakers Fast Break at NBA Observations. But it would not be some good NBA observations without a guy who goes ahead and scours the NBA like no one else. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today for the Suave Report and the New Century Express. It is, of course, Calif Poncy. Calif, great to have you back, my friend. Much to discuss as we get closer to the end of the season. I know some of the topics that you put on, as far as that's concerned, correlate to that. But great to have you back, my friend, back in the saddle once again.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. I mean, I thought it was a pretty, about as interesting of a week as you're going to get this late into the NBA regular season most of the time. So, yeah, I'm ready to get going, and we have some stuff to talk about here.
Yes, we do. Where do you want to start first, my friend?
Geez, I don't know. I was
your SGA again, MVP. Looking more like it.
Yeah, I can just do something quick on that. I mean, this last week, I thought it was really weird. Like the odds wise, it looked like it was kind of Shea's award like a week ago or so. Like he's minus 1,500. All of a sudden, Wemby kind of goes up on his podium and says, "Hey, like this is the reasons I should win." And for some reason, that seems to have really influenced a lot of voters that I don't really understand. And then Shea had an off game against Chicago, about as bad as a game as he's going to have. And then it looked like maybe he was going back towards having a second straight bad game. And he's just the type of player where he doesn't really have bad games. That's kind of what's remarkable about how efficient he is, but not to mention 2 in a row. And then all of a sudden in the last 5 minutes in a close game against the Knicks, people are going to be mad about the 16 free throws. But to me, the main takeaway for me from that game was what he did in that last 5 to 7 minutes of the game. He came in off the bench in a close game, and just no matter if he's on, no matter if he's off, if it's a close game, I don't think there's a guy in the league who you feel as confident in as SGA right now. If there's a big shot that you need, if there's someone you just need to get to their spot, need to get to the line, whatever it is, I just think he's kind of hovering above everybody, and that's a tough to do right now. Anthony Edwards is so good in the clutch. We've seen what Luka Doncic can do in the clutch in the past, maybe not quite as much yet on the Lakers, but he has, with that back in his Dallas days, we saw what he could do in big-time situations, and still I think it's SGA. So really what I just thought last night when I sent that is the MVP tightened up, and that's fine. I think this is one of those rare seasons where I think it should be SGA's award, and I don't really personally think there's a strong enough argument yet to deter that. But there's 4 players having these all-time great seasons, including Luka and Jokic, who just kind of seem like, despite having these awesome seasons, they're almost just out already. It's kind of an SGA. And before it was SGA Wemby, maybe Luka pushed. So it almost feels to me like we don't like to be bored in the NBA media. And I just think the answer's been kind of boring. I think SGA's been the MVP all season, and I think he still is. And last night I thought was a good encapsulation of what makes him the MVP. Was just the Thunder are thought of as this super team, great team, and they are. They have not a super team, I don't think, but they have obviously this just dearth of awesome players who anyone would want to have. They probably have 10 people or 11 people on their team who'd be in any rotation at a minimum. But they have games where maybe they're not getting it done. And Jalen Williams was good last night, but Chet Holmgren struggled, and the shooting around him wasn't great, and it was close. And the Knicks were shooting really well. OKC, as I'm sure we may get a comment or two, did get a lot of free throws last night, as usually as a team they don't, but SGA can, and SGA obviously led the charge with 16 legitimate free throws. He didn't get any foul free throws or anything. They were legitimate. And he just kind of came in and said, "No, Knicks, I know you can probably make the finals. Like, I'm just going to end the game." And I don't think there's anyone else in the league that can do that right now. So that's kind of my SGA thing, and I don't want to spend too much time on it. But I just thought MVP tightening up was really weird because I don't really think SGA did anything to make himself lose ground. And I don't think Wemby did anything so singularly spectacular that he should have all of a sudden made up a bunch of ground. It almost just seemed like a betting trend, maybe based on some boredom to me, because I don't really know. I mean, Wemby really struggled. I don't remember who they played, but he really struggled in one of his games last week, and then his odds still dropped. So it just kind of feels like there's a lot of momentum for him right now to win. And I just don't think he should. I think it should be SGA. Obviously, I'm a little biased on it, but I do pride myself on being able to kind of remove that bias as much as I can. And I just don't think it should be anyone other than SGA for MVP. And I thought, again, last night was just a good kind of reminder, even when he's bad, he's great. And that's kind of what I think the encapsulation of an MVP should be.
I'll just say this. Right now, the voting trend is still going to lean towards SGA as long as OKC stays up on top. If they don't by season's end, then I don't know what to expect at that point in time. But then I think it could be a free-for-all. I think more ammunition could be put on the side of Victor Wembanyama, and then toss in some votes there for Jokic, and of course toss in plenty of votes in there for Luka Doncic, if Luka Doncic stays in third with the Lakers, and of course you see Denver right behind in fourth. Yeah. If that all stays out like it is right now, then I think you're going to see it pattern just like that, with SGA first, according to the voters, then Wemby, then Luka, and then Doncic. And Doncic third, and then Nikola Jokic fourth.
Yeah.
But I think if it changes, then I think it'll change accordingly. I think, or there's a chance that it might. I didn't say it. I don't want to say it will, because I don't know these voters. I don't know these people. They all say different things. They all say it's one thing one week, and then they'll say another thing to another week. So I'm just going to say there's the prospect of change if the standings change along with it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of this on Twitter, and I agree, where I just don't know that. I mean, if San Antonio gets the 1 seed over OKC, they're probably going to have like the exact same record, and San Antonio will just have the tiebreaker. That's kind of, I think, the most likely formula for San Antonio getting the 1 seed. And I just don't think if these two teams have the same exact record, then that should really be much of a tiebreaker. And I just think Wemby over the last 20, maybe since the All-Star break even, has probably been the most dominant singular force player. But San Antonio, team record-wise, since the All-Star break, hasn't made up any ground in OKC, because OKC and SGA have really been just as good in terms of churning out these wins. And they've done it against bad teams, which was kind of the crutch for many at the early season. Why they were so good was because they started out with that historically easy schedule. But now, I mean, they have some really hard games. I believe Thunder and Lakers still play twice. The Thunder played Detroit tonight. Now it's going to be a hobbled version of both teams, because Detroit basically held out their whole team, and now Jalen Williams is out for OKC. So that's kind of unfortunate, but still, I mean, that on the schedule should be a hard game. At least it's kind of turned out not to be. And I think OKC still has won against Denver. So OKC is really ending with some really difficult matchups, and they're still just kind of winning all of them. They lost the one game last week, of course, but really, I mean, I don't know what's happened that Shea should lose ground. And I don't think Wemby has done anything spectacular. I don't think what Wemby's doing now is really much different from what he's been doing all season. He's obviously like the singularly most destructive defensive player we're probably ever going to see. They just don't make Wembys, like 7'6", 7'7", so super fast, super agile, doesn't get blown by on the perimeter, and changes defense. And we don't need to reach. We don't need to have the NBA on Prime posting clips of him doing a basic baseline stop on not good NBA player Taurean Prince to say how good he is on defense. Like we already know. So I haven't really got it, because I don't know what SGA has done. I mean, if you want to say that he had his first bad game the whole season, and all of a sudden that should make his odds drop by, like, I don't know, he went from minus 1,500 to basically minus 375 after that game. So I just don't think that's a legitimate reason. And I still do think he'll most likely hold on to the MVP, because OKC just kind of doesn't lose the same way San Antonio doesn't lose. It's pretty crazy what both these teams are doing on top of the standings. But I really didn't want to spend a crazy amount of time on it. I just wanted to go through and say, last night I just think is an important game if you actually care about this MVP, because Wemby has the momentum. People don't really like the Thunder. People don't really like Shea. I understand this. But I don't know what he's possibly done to not win MVP. And I think he's been so good all season. He's put that himself in that spot. Like, what has he done to lose it? It's almost less about what the other guys do to earn it. What is he going to do to take himself out of first? And I don't think he's done anything. And so I just thought that movement was interesting and should be talked about because it went from it was done to this is pretty close all of a sudden. And
I'm just going to say that I think there's some fatigue. There's some fatigue like there was for Jokic. But I think with what SGA is doing and has done and continues to do, it's not spectacular. It's not sexy. And it's something where it just the voters just want to go ahead in a different direction. And right now, Victor Wembanyama and what he's doing, and that the fact that he is Victor Wembanyama is part of it. But again, I still think it's predicated on the standings and the MVP rankings right now this season primarily should be based off that. And I do not see even okay, I'm gonna say 2.5 games, but let's just say 2 games. 2 games. I don't see San Antonio in the last 8 games making that up or 7 or 8 games. I just think that OKC will win enough that, even if they split with the Lakers or even if they lose to the Lakers, I still think that there's going to be enough there for them to go ahead and still take the conference. And thus, I think they're still decide to go ahead and vote in SGA. I just think the narrative is what always we talk about when it concerns these voters and what is the narrative. And if the narrative still says OKC has the best overall record, I still think they'll go with SGA.
Yeah, and I mean, I heard it on a podcast yesterday. Like, there's still not a ton of advance. Like defensively, Wembanyama's obviously a world's better player than Shea. Offensively, Shea's still a pretty world's, but I mean, he's more efficient by a pretty good amount than Wembanyama, and Wembanyama's like 7'7". So there's that part of it. I mean, I think it's really hard to encapsulate how impressive his efficiency is for a guard, like unless you really want to step back and think about it on a historic scale, because there's just never been a guard this efficient before. It just doesn't really exist. And I don't want to live in the moment and say like, well, we're seeing whatever. But I mean, just statistically speaking, there's been maybe I think less than 3 or 4 guard seasons that have ever been this efficient on this high a volume. I mean, most of these guys, even that we love, like I'll just go to my generation of players that I grew up with. Like Russell Westbrook won MVP and James Harden was winning MVPs, and they're just not on the same plane of efficiency as what SGA is doing. So yeah, I mean, I just I thought maybe we should just do a quick little discussion about that because all of a sudden it is a race at the top, but I think we can probably move on here. I don't think it's super pressing. I just thought last night was a good reminder to me of what makes him the MVP because it was so specifically what he does over and over again and why he's so great.
We'll see what happens over the course of next week, and if we have to, if we're here revisiting it, that tells you something has changed. I'll just leave it at that. And as far as some type of national thinking on it, but again, it's a shame that they won't have any more head-to-head meetings before the end of the season. But they can always go ahead and meet each other in the playoffs. But I know that Luka and the Lakers, Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets will have something to say about that indeed. And also Minnesota, possibly Houston as well. So we'll go ahead and make sure we got that covered for you. But you talked about the rankings in the West as far as 3 through 6. I don't want to go into the rankings in the East right now below number 4 because that's just a mess right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. That is subject to change. This time last week, I was talking with you. I was talking with Legend about Atlanta and the rising Charlotte Hornets. Now we're talking about the descending Atlanta and descending Charlotte Hornets and talking about Philadelphia right now as a possibility. So yeah, it's all over the place right now in the East. So I'm just going to leave it at there. Maybe go ahead and approach it later on this week. But for 3 to 6 in the West, you wanted to talk about that as far as the Lakers, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, and the Houston Rockets. Again, last year, there were more teams involved. If you include Golden State, I think there was one more team. Maybe off. No, I think that was it. That was just adding in Golden State, but they were closer. They were more bunched up than they are this season. It's a little bit spread apart, but are you getting that same kind of feeling you were last season that all these teams are equal, or do you think there's just tiers at this point in time?
See, that's kind of what I wanted to do. Is I just wanted us to kind of both rank them like in terms of I mean, we can just set the criteria like how likely you think they are to make the conference finals. So that's beat OKC or beat San Antonio, basically. Because I think that the clear last place team has now been established in this, and then I really think the other three all are just kind of in the eye of the beholder. Like I think you can value any of these three teams. You can value what the Lakers have done really over the last month. You can value the 2 back-to-back conference finals from Minnesota, or you can value that the Nuggets might still have the best player in the world, and have they showed last year that despite maybe being a little underwhelming in the regular season, they were right there with the Thunder. So I just think that I'm assuming we both can just go ahead and pencil in Houston for last on our lists of these teams.
Well, you said you could, but if you look at the standings, they're tied with Minnesota because they've won 2 straight.
Do you think Minnesota is worse than Houston?
I mean, Minnesota was a 6th ranked team and they walloped the Lakers in the first round last year. So it all depends. I mean, I thought with Ayo Dosunmu, they would actually, I really thought that Ayo Dosunmu was one of the best, that and Kobe White were those two being sent away from Chicago was probably the dumbest move Chicago could make. I know that they were going to be free agents, so them not being re-signed was absolutely dumb enough. But I thought Ayu Dosunmu would be a really sweet move for Minnesota and would actually get them where the Lakers are now. But they've just been okay, even though he's played great, which is just absolutely just mind-boggling to me. I just feel they have less depth for some reason than they did before last season. So I think they're weaker.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, Houston head to head against top teams in the West, anybody above them, I just don't think they have a real chance. I just don't, they just look weak because the fact that they just have those injuries, they have those gaps, they don't have a ball handler when they need it the most to set their offense at crucial points of time of the game. Steven Adams is so underrated in what he does. They're still a great offensive rebounding team, but Steven Adams just does some dirty stuff. Not in a dirty, well, he does do something dirty way, but he does it in a way that really you notice all the little things that he does. But I just think right now Houston is the weakest of these teams. But I don't think it's. I don't have a great vibe on Minnesota because I just don't feel that they are playing at the same level they were last season, even heading into the playoffs as a number 6 seed, if that's crazy to say.
Yeah, I mean, they've just been so hurt. Like Edwards has been out for a few weeks. Randall has really just been pretty bad, quite frankly.
Since the All-Star break.
Yeah. Now McDaniels got announced he's hurt now and he's going to miss some time. So just kind of feels like this is one of those teams that in a West this deep, it maybe just isn't their year to go back to that West Finals. And this team just always is so weird to me because I get they made the back-to-back West Finals, but frankly, neither one of those West Finals was close. They just kind of got beat pretty bad in both of them. Like, obviously, if there was that crazy Game 4 between OKC and Minnesota last year, and both teams just couldn't miss a shot, and OKC just came out on top. And if it goes the other way, who knows how much closer it is? But then they responded to that game by OKC just came out and floored them in Game 5 and won the series pretty easily at that point. So they've just really kind of – I don't know, something about this team – just doesn't stick with me. And that's not been the this year specific thing. That's been an always thing. Like they basically need Anthony Edwards to be some version of Kobe, Michael Jordan, SGA, that type of like level, Luka, like that level of star all-time offensive engine. And I just don't think he can do that. And I don't think he's efficient enough to do that. And not to say he can. I mean, I think he's still only 24 or 23 or somewhere in that age range. He definitely can. But right now, I don't think that's who he is. And this team just – there's a certain point when things just feel weird for too long. And that's kind of where I've been with Houston too. Like Houston's just felt weird for more of the season than they haven't felt weird. And that's kind of – you can say it's the injuries. I say it's just kind of the perils of a Kevin Durant team. Like at this point, we're now like 4 teams in a row where things just get weird when Kevin Durant's your best player. That's just kind of what happens with him. Not to take away from, I think, one of the 15 best players of all time. But I mean – Golden State, how are you unhappy in Golden State? No one's ever been unhappy in Golden State other than him and Jonathan Kuminga. those two. And then Brooklyn, he basically comes in, fires the coach, makes him trade Jared Allen so they can sign old DeAndre Jordan. And then within 2 years, is sick of it, asks for a trade out of there, goes to Phoenix. The team is way less talented this year and way better and more fun to watch. And Booker looks like Booker again. And now he's in Houston, and after half a season, there's a burner scandal, and it's just, this is Kevin Durant. This is kind of who he is and where we're at with him. And I think Minnesota and them are in a similar place where both these teams just felt weird all year. Like Minnesota, just one of these years, can you just be consistent and try the whole season? Like you haven't won a champion, you haven't even made the finals to like cruise through the whole season just based on your merits in the playoffs. So, I mean, I don't know. I think that if I had to rank them, in terms of do I think they can beat OKC or San Antonio, Denver would be one for me still, just because I believe in the infrastructure and I believe in Jokic. The Lakers have now passed Minnesota to me pretty clearly and are 2, which I would not have said even 3 weeks ago. Minnesota's still above Houston to me, just because I think Ant is a dynamic enough talent that if he gets hot, they could. And they've beaten Denver, and they've beaten Denver. Like who knows what they'll do. And then Houston's last. This Houston team, the offense is a mess at the end of games. They don't seem like they like each other very much, really, when you watch them. Şengün and Thompson both, I think we expected maybe to be a half step farther along than they are at the beginning of this season with how well they started. And they really never have been able, like they're finally they're playing Shepherd a lot more, which is good because they have to, but he's not Fred VanVleet at this point. He's always going to get hunted defensively against these good teams, and that's what we're talking about. This isn't about if Houston can beat Brooklyn. This is about if Houston can beat San Antonio, beat the Lakers, beat OKC, and I don't think they have any chance. I think the other 3, I can see a world. Not very many worlds, especially with OKC, because OKC's now been through it. They're experienced. You never know how the playoffs will affect San Antonio. But, so my rankings would be most dangerous to this group is clearly, to me, Denver, and then the Lakers, and then Minnesota. With Minnesota's only even close to the Lakers because of what they've shown the last 2 years, and then Houston pretty far last for me.
I think with the Lakers playing the way they are now, I think they are number 3 for me. But Denver, they've decided to go ahead and they wanted to play ball right at the right time. And you have Murray playing at a high level, 50 points the other night, 53 actually. You have Jokic still getting the video game numbers. They still have some injury issues and concerns they still need to get over, but they're getting closer and closer to health. But they're in the OKC side of things, and as long as they say on the OKC side of things, that kind of I don't know. I just don't think that they are as strong right now as I'd like to see them. So while they're not as strong as I thought they would be, I thought the additions that they made in the offseason, plus the growth of some of their young players, would propel them even further. And they've had growth from some of their young players, Spencer Jones, and of course Peyton Watson have come on. And, those guys are now really great part of the rotation, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And they're still propelled by Jokic and Murray and Gordon and all that. I just don't. It's just weird. They seem to have gotten better on paper, but didn't seem to get better in real life.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of faith in them still, just because they kind of did like the same exact thing last year to the point where they fired Mike Malone. And then they all of a sudden got to the playoffs and were as close as anybody to beating OKC. So, I mean, I have a lot of faith in this team to figure it out and be a really good playoff team. But I mean, defensively, I just don't think they're ever going to have the personnel. Like, it's basically you're really relying on Aaron Gordon to be like an all defense level guy when it matters most. And that's fine. And I think he could be that. But like we saw in that really crazy best game of the year, I think on Peacock a month ago between the Nuggets and Thunder, Spencer Jones is not a solution to guarding SGA, and he's kind of like their second best option. So that's not a great thing because Christian Brown's not an answer either. And not that there really is an answer for SGA, I don't think, at this point. But I just don't. It's my same concern with the Lakers, honestly. It's like I just don't know when they really get into series with these heavy hitters. I don't know what they're doing to stop these other like awesome all NBA MVP level guys. And that really, I mean, they did pretty good defensively on OKC last year, but that's because OKC hadn't really figured out how to play the zone yet, and they really heavily deployed the zone in that series and made OKC's shooters make shots. And it feels like watching 90% of OKC's games this year, it feels like they've solved that zone now. Like they figured that was a wrinkle you could throw at them last year that I don't think affects them anymore. So that's going to be interesting because those two obviously right now are likely to get matched up in the second round. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with all these teams. If anyone can beat San Antonio and OKC other than each other, I think is going to really be the story of this West this year. Is kind of what it seems like to me. Like, is that just the matchup we've been destined for all season, or can one of these teams stop that from setting into motion? So, yeah, I mean, I think that the interpretation of those has been up and down depending on the week all season. But I think now at this point, I have enough of a sample size where I'm willing to just say Houston, I don't think they're on the same level as these teams. Minnesota's coasting off reputation. And then the Lakers and Nuggets are playing really well at the right time when you want to be playing well. So all in all, I think this is really, for me, it's Lakers and Nuggets are a group, and then the Wolves are a group, and then Houston, I just am disgusted with what I see with them most of the time because it's a team in theory I think should be good. I like some of their young players. I love Amen Thompson. I've always been a big fan of his. And it just isn't kind of where I wanted it to be. And I think they luckily didn't give up a ton for Kevin Durant, but he's just not someone I think I would get in business with as my best player at this stage of his career. I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze with everything that seems to, again, we're like 4 or 5 stops deep now, like just kind of what seems to come with him being your best player.
So we will see what happens, my friend. But that's a pretty good analysis as far as again, if the Lakers are playing the way that they played in that 9-game win streak, I give them a definite puncher's chance against anyone. But they all have to click. All three, the big three, have to click. If they don't click, or if somebody just falters, and this is a big test for Luka to see how far he can take a team, but also a bigger test for Austin Reeves, seeing how he is going to be wanting a chunk of change in the offseason. And then for LeBron James, where is he at in the postseason? He'll have some rest because I'm assuming they're going to try and rest him before the playoffs. So it won't be like they're going and gassed like they were this time last year, or Luka out of shape. Or those excuses that they had last year are going to be gone. They're going to have rest. They're going to hopefully be able to have enough leeway where they have third place locked up, but we'll find out after this week if that's going to be a possibility or reality. But again, I just think that they'll have less excuses to advance, not to advance far this season. I think that they do have a shot. And again, that 9-game win streak proves something to me. It proved that they can coalesce together, and they can be pretty dangerous when they do.
Yeah, I couldn't put it any better. I agree. I think anybody beating OKC San Antonio than each other doesn't feel likely to me, but the Lakers, if they play like they did in that 9-game win streak, like you said, they stay healthy. They're way better than they were last season at this time. There's no question. And I think they have, like you said, a puncher's chance.
Well, there you go. But if you guys have any thoughts on ranking 3 through 6 in the West, let us know below, or your thoughts on the MVP as we head into the final days of the season. But before we head on out, I wanted to go ahead and I know Calif wanted to talk some draft. Oh my gosh, it's getting that itch. Getting that itch. You're getting me that itch. And I don't know if you've checked out the archives. We've spent many off season on the NBA draft. So yeah, you're starting to scratch that itch, my friend, especially in one of the biggest drafts as far as scenarios that we have. And I know somebody made the comment, well, they're doing the lottery things now. It really won't matter much because the NBA draft won't be as good the following year. And I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, it may not be as good quality wise, but the players that you see now in the top 100 may not all be there in the top 100 when the draft gets picked, because first, NIL money is going to change some perspectives.
Yeah.
The second thing is, when they go to that draft combine in Chicago and they're told really by NBA people where they think they will fall, or their agents, or if they get guarantees or whatnot, they'll know coming out of Chicago probably where they stand as far as it's concerned as well. So there's a whole bunch of variables that may lead the draft to not be as deep as it, you think it hope would be, or you hope it would be coming into this June. I still think it's going to be pretty dang deep.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
with that being said, my friend, and Will, this will tie into our NCAA championship predictions for Monday. So your thoughts, my friend, on this, because yeah, it's been a great run in the tournament so far. I really enjoyed myself watching the games and obviously getting more to it. I do you want to say that there is some impression that you should make when a player rises and plays well in the tournament? But we've seen where people hold a lot of stock into it when somebody rises in the tournament. And I don't want to put too much stock in it, but I don't want to discount it either.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fan. I mean, I really hope that's kind of more of a fan thing. Like, I really hope that NBA teams didn't watch the tournament and realize that Darius Acuff was like really. I hope they kind of were on. It's not like he was doing anything different. He just did it on a bigger stage, which counts for something. I agree,
Yeah.
but I don't think should majorly change
He's
anyone's
a
thing.
scorer, and I think he's a legit scorer at the next level too.
Yeah, I mean, I went through. I don't know if you did. I went through and did ranked my kind of top 10, my personal. Like,
Mhm.
haven't really dove in super deep yet, but like
So
my
where do you
top
have it,
10.
my friend?
So
Just
I
it's and this is all just subject to change without
Yeah,
notice.
definitely. I mean, I have Acuff at 8. I just am not a huge fan of the small guard. Like,
Mhm.
there's been some who say, well, guards have never, like, what star guards have played defense? And it's just kind of not that era. And like, SGA plays defense, Cade Cunningham plays defense. I get Luka is not necessarily an A-plus defensive player, but he's also giant. So kind of like that's not the same
Somehow
as like
third in the league in steals. So
yeah,
tell
and
me that
so
one.
that's not the same as like 6'1", 6'2" Darius Acuff. So
Yeah.
my top 10 is I just have Debanston, Peterson 1A, 1B now. That's where I'm at. And I'm a little higher on Peterson, I think, than you are, based off kind of what we've talked about in the past prior weeks. But I just think that the upside is so dynamic, I'd take the risk on the weirdness. And then the first kind of one I have that's a little different is I have Caleb Wilson above Boozer. I had that before yesterday. I don't think Cam should be. I almost called him Carlos. I don't think Cam should be penalized for. I don't think he did anything wrong. Honestly, I mean, I thought that
Well, that goes
he.
the same way as far as a big rise in the tournament should also not mean that one
Yeah,
game in the
absolutely.
tournament should be the cost of your, five, oh, you dropped 5, 10 spots now because you had one
Yeah,
bad game.
absolutely. So I just have Caleb Wilson ahead of him because that Duke Carolina game that Carolina won at the buzzer when Caleb Wilson was playing really left an impression on me. Like, Caleb Wilson was everywhere and he was just as good as Boozer. And he just is so much more raw to me. Like, he has so much more athleticism. Like, that's really my big concern with Boozer. Big concern. He's at 4th and like one of the best drafts we've ever had. But my big concern with Boozer is he just lacks that super explosive vertical athleticism. That's just kind of not his game. And he's not necessarily big enough, nor do we play away in the NBA anymore, where like the only guy I can think of who maybe he kind of profiles like is Şengün. Like, that kind of is who he reminds me of a little bit, where it's not super vertically athletic, but he's a really gifted passer. And he honestly has a pretty good set of post moves, which is not something you see super commonly anymore. But Caleb Wilson to me is just, I think if I had to bet, he'll be a worse NBA player than Boozer. But I think the athletic upside is so strong with him where I can see I can see more worlds personally where Caleb Wilson is a true franchise changing superstar than I do Boozer. I think Boozer is that report came out where the Pacers would consider taking Boozer first. And I think that would be great because you already have your franchise changing superstar. And I think that Boozer can be like a guy who fits in with anyone. He's such a good passer. I think he has more in the mid-range game than he's shown, which means he can probably, working at it, expand. I don't know what his free throw percentage is, but just based off what I know about him, I think it profiles in a way where like I don't think it's impossible he learns to be able to shoot threes at a pretty like a passable rate, but I just think I'd take the bet on the upside swing with Caleb Wilson personally instead of the super. I think super safe to be a fringe all-star floor guy in Boozer. I think he's going to be a really good NBA player no matter what. I just question if there's like a true this can be your best player on a finals team level superstar in there. I just don't think he's athletic enough or weird enough to do that. And speaking of weird, fifth for me, and I've loved this guy forever. And the tournament has made a bit of an impression for me because he's kind of, I think, become clearly the best of these guards to me, and that I have Keaton Wagler fifth. I think that game against Iowa, that was a really telling game for me because Iowa basically said, we're going to shut off the 3-point line and we're going to do everything we can to you have to make decisions and you have to beat us. That's what, and we're going to make you do it because no one else really had the ball point guard wise in that game for Illinois. And he figured it out and he got whatever shot he wanted. He did a Penny Hardaway weird spin step back thing that very few do well in the NBA, even it's basically SGA can do it. He's really the only star level player who does that weird tilt step back weird, just not very many players have ever done it. And body wise, he reminds me of Halliburton and SG. I think he makes sense body wise with where guards are right now, which he's 6'6". He's a way better shooter than SGA was coming out for someone of the same body style, and Halliburton coming out. He has great feel. He was not a highly rated recruit, which I think is telling how good you have to be in this class to really he wasn't supposed. All these other guys, other than one that I have in my top 10, were kind of supposed to be here at some level, other than him. And he was a 3-star, I think. Went to Illinois, was out of Kansas. And just really has impressed me. And I think the way and he's weird, he's not a super athlete, but he gets to where he wants still. It's very unique, and you don't see a ton of guys who can do that. So I love him. He's probably my favorite. I don't say favorite in the way I think he's going to be the best. But he's probably my favorite player to watch in this top 5. When Peterson's on, it's unbelievable. He makes everything and dunks on people. There's nothing he can't do offensively. But yeah, that's my top 5. Did you make a list, or is this just kind of me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you go through top 5, and then I'll drop my next 5.
I got Debanza. I told you. I think he's a safer pick, but Peterson does have the, I think, possible higher upside as far as, which one could break out more. But I'm going with Debanza. Peterson, I just didn't like what I saw as far as the mindset is concerned. Again, he's seemed like the whole entire season he's had directed towards something else, and that something else is the NBA draft, and it better come through. And that's all I'll say, or else that's going to be a disappointment. But I really think that he has the higher upside over Debanza, but I'm going to go with what I know and what I see and what I like that competed at every level, including in college, 110%. So I'm going to give Debanza the slight edge over Peterson. I'm not going to sit here and say differently on Wilson, but we're all smacking on Boozer. And if you check the UConn Duke as far as game, if you watch that game, Boozer still dropped 27.
Oh yeah, he was great. I thought he was really good in that game.
So people say that he doesn't have the upside of the other guys, possibly right around the top 5, but yet he's somebody who might be an perennial all-star for years to come. So it's just okay. If that's the case, I like Caleb Wilson as well. I like what I see with Caleb. So again, a slight nod to Wilson over Boozer, but again, if you pick Boozer over Wilson, I'm not going to fault you. I'm not going to fault you. If you pick Peterson over Debanza, I'm not going to fault you. I'm not going to fault you. And this may change once again, seeing what we see coming out of the Chicago Combines, or we see the measurement of those guys, because those guys won't perform, but those guys will, they'll just go ahead and maybe do some warm-ups against a chair or something. So again, we'll see as far as the measurements, if they stick, what they will actually be. Fifth place, I do have Keaton Wagler as well. I really like I think I like the moxie on that kid, and 6'6", I think is a really good size, and he does compete, and we're going to see more of him in the Final Four here. So Illinois, if I can say that right, Illinois, I really thought was an underrated team all season. They have size, they have talent, they have a bench play. They've got some really good stuff there. So we'll see what happens with Illinois. But Keaton Wagler is number 5 for me on that as well.
Yeah. So we have the exact same top five, the great podcasting content as
There you
always.
go. I know, absolutely. But I got to it in a different fashion. There you
Yeah, I imagine our lists here will be different just because there's kind of someone for everyone here. I
go. This
think.
one is where it breaks off. I have a feeling.
I didn't really know exactly who to, this. I think 6 through 9 for me are all interchangeable and really similar, and then I have another guy down at 10.
I think it's based off of you're going to start going based off of needs, not best player available.
Yeah, so I have Kingston Fleming 6 still. I didn't necessarily love what I saw down the stretch, but I think that he showed a ton earlier in the season where and I think either the first or second best college basketball conference in the Big 12. I think he showed he was one of the best guards in that conference right away. He wasn't super lowly rated like Wagler. Like he was a pretty highly rated prospect, but he wasn't one of these like main guys either in a similar fashion to Wagler, which I always like and take note of when guys really rise up the ranks during the draft process. So I have Fleming 6. I still have Mikal Brown 7, which I think is probably about as high as anyone's going to have him right now with what we've seen from Acuff and then Burries, who I have in this next few too. Just guys like that. He's not of mind right now, but he's a very different player. But like Wagler and Fleming's both, he's big. And I think he's like 6'5", 6'2". And I think having these big guards, and he scored a ton at Louisville. He's almost 20 a game. So I think that he showed again, and the ACC wasn't great this year, but that's obviously quality competition in the ACC. And he scored a lot and was the best player on a team that was pretty good until his kind of 1A, 1B guy got hurt. And then they still win a tournament game with kind of him as their main scoring option and lead guard. So I took notice of that. I still have him 7, but I think he's probably the most likely to drop on my list here. 8 is where I have Acuff. I just think that I really value positional size. Obviously, the build I've most recently seen is OKC, and OKC, as much as anyone in the league values, like you have to be tall or big or long for your position. And he's not tall, he's not big, and he's not long. And so that's just not really my personal preference. He's a super dynamic scorer. If you tell me he averages 30 points a game at some point in the NBA, I'm not going to be surprised by that. Like I think he has the chance to be that dynamic. But I just think the defense, he's never going to hold up defensively, which isn't the biggest deal ever. But it's a knock when you're really splitting hairs with guys up here with how good all these players are, and that's one that I just knocked him for. I just don't think he's being small and bad at defense. I just don't think. I mean, again, this is kind of what I brought up last week talking about him. Like, this is kind of what we see now from like this is now the players in the league that represent this kind of small, bad at defense guards. It's like not Westbrook. He's not in the top of mind anymore on Sacramento Kings. Who's I thinking of? Trae Young, another weird wizard, just like Russell Westbrook. Trae Young, Damian Lillard, guys like that is just we've seen their like, and then I think Dame's was because of the Achilles tear, of course, but I also don't think they probably could have got a lot out of Dame just for trading him. So he's in that dangerous thing that some people think is worse than drafting a bust, which is you draft these guy who's going to put up his numbers and you got to pay him. Because he shows that, but the effect just isn't, I don't think, necessarily going to be there. And we'll see. He is talented enough that I could be wrong and he could just average 30 points a game and be great. And I acknowledge that. The 9th for me is Burries. I just don't see the superstar upside there when I think with all these other guys, there's some level of like, you can be a legitimate all NBA player. The first 8 on this list, I think I'll have that. And I don't see that with Burries. And then 10, I have Yaxel Lindenberg, who is a little older. People don't necessarily like him. He's a talker. But I'll tell you, you can get annoyed by him. I like Tennessee, and he was annoying me a lot yesterday when he was dominating my Vols. But at the same time, every game I've watched of Michigan during the regular season and tournament, he always shows up. He's gigantic. He rebounds. He defends. He has a three-point shot. If he was 19, I think he would be like 3rd. But he's not. He's like 24, 25. So he's older, but I think that could possibly lead to him falling a little bit. And I think whoever gets him in that late lottery is going to get like a really, really, really good player. So I don't think a star for him or Burries, but I think they are top 1% role player type guys.
I'm going to go with Darius Acuff Jr. at number 6. I do think he has some kind of moxie with him as far as his ability to score and produce offense, but it's all dependent on what he measures at. If he measures at 6'3", at the combine, I don't have as many concerns. If he measures at 6 foot, then I have a lot of concerns.
I'm just kind of banking in that he's going to He's going to actually measure up at like 6'1", because that's just kind of usually how it goes.
That's usually how it goes. Like, see Bronny James on that, because I think he was 6'3" at USC. Yeah, see how that went. But I'm going to say if he measures tall, then I'm going to keep him there. If he doesn't, then I'm going to have to drop him. But I do like what I see with him as far as his ability to score and create offense for his team. Number 7, I'm going to probably go. I really wanted to go ahead, and I have not seen Kareem Lopez. I just want to make sure, because I know that he is high on a lot of people's list, and he is the international prospect that is the highest among the international prospects. I'm going to have to talk to my friend as far as who's overseas right now that scouts for the Dallas Mavericks. Going to have to go ahead and Rafael Barlow and ask him about Kareem Lopez. And then I'm gonna say right now I would put Mikael Brown over Kingston Flemings. One thing we're gonna see here, two things that this thing is loaded with in this draft: power forwards at 6'9", 6'10", and 6'11", and point guards, and which is good because we needed an influx of point guards, and we're seeing them. So I'm going to put right now Mikael Brown Jr. I like what I've seen with Mikael Brown. I just think to me, he's slightly over what I saw from Kingston Flemings, not just in the tournament for Kingston, but also as well just leading into it. Kingston Fleming is just solid. He's just solid, really solid. Nothing to say bad, nothing to say great. But to me, he's just really solid. And I think that for me is just, going to be something where he's going to be a 10 to 12 year pro. No problems with him. But Mikael Brown Jr. just has something a little extra that I like to see. I haven't put LeBron Phillip Jr. yet in there yet. So, but I'm looking at more video on him before I can determine where I can put him. But right now, I'm going to go with Darius Acuff Jr. at 6. I'm going to go with Mikael Brown Jr. at 7. I'm going to go with Kingston Flemings at 8. I'm going to go with. I really like Lindenberg. I really like what I said. I'm going to go with him at 9th, and at 10th. Well, like I said, I have not seen much. I want to see more footage on Philon Jr. and Lopez. And I just can't get there yet with Mullins' last shot notwithstanding, because somebody else had to pick up the slack for the UConn Huskies to get where they're going to be. I think I'm just going to have to go with Braden Burries from Arizona to fill out my top 10 for now. But I still have more work to do. I've got so much stuff going on, so I have not been able to watch as much video as I like on these guys. And I don't just watch the highlights, because the highlights are just the worst things that you can see. You have to see full games, and you have to go ahead and research exactly which games, good and bad, that they had in order to go ahead and check that out.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, we have the same 10 guys, just as I figured, kind of in a little bit different mix there at the bottom. But this is going to be an interesting draft, because there is really interesting guys after that. There's Philon, there's Ament, there's Kareem Lopez, who I just kind of think none of us really know too much about yet. I don't blame you for putting Lundenborg high. If there's a guy that I think would be a great person for any contending team to add, that whether it's San Antonio with that Hawks pick, OKC with the Philly pick, any team that's good, that's going to kind of have an extra pick right there in the middle of the draft. I don't know that he'll last. I just think in a draft with this much talent, age is going to get knocked more than it would most years, just because of how young and gifted, even like a Nate Ament is, who's the same position, flashed a lot, number 4 recruit, was kind of thought of to be in this top 5 before the season. Didn't have a great year at Tennessee, wasn't great in the tournament, or he got hurt late in the season, and kind of wasn't ever the same after that. But if he does come out, which every indication is he's going to, people are going to prefer him maybe just because of how much younger he is than Lundenborg, even though I think Lundenborg could walk in. He feels like such a Miami Heat player to me. Just very few more have ever felt like, oh, that's someone who I can just see starting and being really good for the Heat as a rookie than Lundenborg. Whoever gets him is going to get a really productive player who can do a little bit of everything. He's not completely inept as a playmaker. He's pretty good. He's connective at least. Great rebounder for his position. I mean, played 4-5, I think, at UAB. They've talked about that a lot in the tournament. He played the 4 and 5 at UAB, transfers to Michigan. He's basically been a small forward. And so, yeah, I think Lundenborg could be awesome. And I just think the age maybe limits what his ceiling could be. But we've seen that we're multi-year college guys. That's not necessarily the case in the last few years, where that's maybe a bit overblown. So we'll see. He could end up top 10. He could end up late lottery to me. And I think it's just really going to depend. We'll see how he tests athletically. He doesn't strike me as like some overwhelmingly athletic player, even though he will dunk on guys. Like he showed multiple times, like he'll dunk on someone, but I just don't think he's necessarily going to test out of the world. So between his age and my prediction would be not like A+ top 1% testing. I think maybe we'd see him fall a little bit, but I agree he's one of the 10 best players in the draft.
Well, there you go, my friend. It is, of course, Calif Poncy. Go ahead and check out what he's doing today at the New Century Express and also the Suave Report indeed. But before we go, my friend, real quick, your national champion, because actually right now on ESPN, for me, on one side of the Final Four is still intact with Arizona, Michigan. My other side of the Final Four is not so intact, so we will just not talk about that. But I think the national champion will come from that game in Arizona and Michigan. Your thoughts, my friend, on where it might go from there?
I've had Arizona the whole time. Michigan is there. That's basically the de facto championship. Even if UConn or Illinois somehow beats that team, like those are the two best teams. I think we all could see it just watching the games. So I'll lean Arizona just because I've kind of believed in them all season. I believe in their depth a little bit more, and I think they can go toe to toe with Michigan size wise. Just they have so many bodies to throw at Mara, but so I'll go Arizona. But either like I'm 51-49. Like I have no idea. I think that's going to be a really crazy like classic March Madness game by the end of it.
I'm with you. I flip-flopped. When I made my brackets out, the one thing I had hardest was who was going to go ahead and advance to the final game between those two. And I flip-flopped back and forth. I actually chose one, went away.
Yep.
Came back, chose another, went away. Came back, and I've stuck with Michigan. So at this point in time, I've got Michigan, but like you, it's 51-49 on that. So I am. If Arizona wins, it will not surprise me at all, and not at the very least. So
no, those have been the two best teams. Really, I get their record. I understand they beat Michigan late in the year. I think it's so clear that Duke was not the best team in this tournament, and I get Caleb Foster wasn't himself and wasn't healthy, but why they were the number 1 overall seed, so that this is a Final Four matchup and not national championship matchup. I just think it's unfortunate because the eye test backed up the Arizona and Michigan both, despite, again, I understand the value of the head-to-head has to matter. So I'm not too upset that they're over Michigan. But I think Arizona and Michigan have been the two best teams all season. And I think that the fact that they're now headed for this matchup we'll see. The other one is going to be a fun game, but I just feel like it feels so much less giant to me because it's Illinois, who I liked a lot. I mean, I had Illinois in the Final Four in all my brackets. Like I was pretty high on Illinois. And so I'm not surprised by how good they've been. They're so veteran. We just went over how much I love Wagler, but I just think that these two teams are so far ahead of either one of those other two teams.
Well, there you have it. Our thoughts on the national championship game. Please let us know your thoughts on the draft and who will win the national title game on Monday as we head forward with the drive towards the NBA playoffs. We'll go ahead and make sure we keep you up to date on that. And then don't forget to also like and subscribe on your way out. It'd be greatly appreciated. But Calif, great to have you here. Any last thoughts before we head on out?
I don't think so. I think we basically got to everything I wanted to hit. So it was a good show, I thought.
Absolutely. Great show indeed. So we'll be back, you and I, next Monday. Going ahead. See, we're going to have to try and squeeze some time there on Monday because I know the national championship game and all that. And we'll try and squeeze something. We'll get there as far as being able to see if we can get you on. Plus, also Suave other NBA observations, hopefully this week as well. And then, of course, the Lakers fast break. And as far as the post games, join us for all that good stuff right here at the Lakers Fast Break. So for Calif Poncy, it's Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching, listening. We'll be back to continually provide you the best in NBA observations.